Hello, and welcome to Let Me Take You Higher, the podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Villain, and today we're talking about navigating loneliness in modern America, a crisis upon itself. I want to just go ahead and reach out to people out there and let them know what you're experiencing isn't altogether yourself or your own experiences. There are a lot of people in America that are feeling quite the same way. It's a silent epidemic and it's widespread. Loneliness in America and loneliness in the American culture has a pervasive yet entangling entrapment in today's society. Loneliness, despite a digitally connected world, the growing isolation Americans face is alarming. According to a 2021 report by the U.S. Surgeon General, nearly half of all U.S. adults admit to experiencing loneliness. This statistic is a stark reminder that social media, for all its connection, often fails to provide genuine human interactions. In this episode, we'll explore what it means to be lonely in a world where everyone seems just a click away. Stay tuned.
Digital walls and hollow screens, every click a silent scream. We're all connected but feel alone, lost in signal static tones. Lonely hearts in crowded rooms, haunted by the same old tunes. Seeking solace, seeking peace, but it feels just out of reach. In the echo chamber, voices fade. Lonely souls in masquerade, reaching out but no one's there. Just reflections in the air. In the echo chamber, deep and wide, looking for someone by your side. Navigating shadows, feeling small, lost together in it all. Flashing lights and restless nights, trying to fill an endless fight. The more we talk, the less we hear. Living life through screens of fear. DG and villain bring the light, a voice of truth in endless night, guiding us through pain and pride, finding hope in what we hide. In the echo chamber, voices fade. Lonely souls in masquerade, reaching out but no one's there. Just reflections in the air. In the echo chamber, deep and wide, looking for someone by your side. Navigating shadows, feeling small, lost together in it all. Echoes fall like rain in this empty plane. Voices lost in time, searching for a sign. In the echo chamber, voices fade. Lonely souls in masquerade, reaching out but no one's there. Just reflections in the air. In the echo chamber, deep and wide, looking for someone by your side. Navigating shadows, feeling small, lost together in it all. Talking loud but feeling low, every word just seems to grow. Villain's wisdom, Luigi's voice, give us a reason, a choice. Breaking cycles, breaking through, finding meaning in the view. Together we'll explore the pain till echoes soften in the rain. In the echo chamber, voices fade. Lonely souls in masquerade, reaching out but no one's there. Just reflections in the air. In the echo chamber, deep and wide, looking for someone by your side. Navigating shadows, feeling small, lost together in it all. Quiet in the sound, a place where voices once were found. Loneliness and laughter blend, an echo chamber without end.
Welcome back to the Let Me Take You Higher podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Villain. Alongside me today, we have our co-host, Gigi Luigi, and we're talking about something that's very sentimental to both of us. No, all jokes aside, guys, it's a crisis in America, and albeit globally, if you're thinking about it, in a nation filled with bustling cities, endless social feeds, and high-rise buildings packed with people, how can loneliness be so prevalent? Imagine feeling surrounded yet unseen, connected yet isolated. This is the paradox of modern loneliness, which, by the way, the Surgeon General has just come out with this, guys. He says that this is a national epidemic of grand proportion, and there's a lot that goes into it. If you listen to any of our podcasts before, we did something on relationships and how men and women really aren't connecting in the new modern age. That has a lot to do with it. But these really the origins of our evolution? Gigi, I'm going to swing it over to you. If anybody in America knows about loneliness, aside from
Oh,
me,
wow.
I know, and that's a horrible. But can you tell me what your feelings are about this? Do you think it's a national epidemic? Is what they say?
I do believe so. I think
Okay.
social media has a lot to do with that. I kind of watched it with the evolution of just gaming. So the
Yeah.
way I like think about it is like when gaming first started, you would, bring your friends over and you all sit down and take turns and play games together. Then split screen happened, and then online happened, and then
Yeah.
now you're not hanging out with your friends anymore. You're playing in your house, and you're used to not really having to interact with your friends outside of school anymore. And then
Mhm.
slowly but surely, then it becomes like virtual reality. AI gets involved,
Yeah. Yeah.
replacing companionship,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's just,
And
yeah,
you and I,
it's
we
not much
just
else.
yeah, and sorry to cut you off, but you and I, we just did a podcast on AI and social media attacking our kids. And I'm not going to just leave everybody else out. The adults are getting kind of forayed into this attack process too, because I think we've forgotten how to socialize. Like, I remember growing up in the age of social media. I won't say growing up, but I was in my 20s when it really became, well, 19, when it really became prevalent and people were just using that stuff like crack. And I realized that, gosh, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go out and meet anybody else. I can just meet everybody online. And for me, relationship wise, I only date people I've met first online. Can you attest to this? Is this something that you do? Do you actually go to bars anymore, or church, or the grocery store?
Well, I feel like our culture kind of shifted to where like it's kind of like odd to approach someone in person now. I feel like
Yeah, it's
Um,
creepy.
I'm yeah. I mean, luckily for me, I appreciate the human approach to like meeting people in person, having that
Mhm.
spontaneous like spark.
Yeah.
But even still, the person that I'm currently talking to is just someone that we reconnected with each other over like online. Kind of knew
Mhm.
each other before, but you know that's the other magical part about social media. It's like it can bring us together, but it also can tear us apart.
It can just take you apart because, I mean, you find out so much about a person online before you even meet them. And then you meet them, and sometimes the expectations are disshuffled. They're not what you said about to be. And we've all heard the term catfishing, and you meet these people, and God knows it's happened to me a lot of times. And you meet these people who aren't what they pretended themselves to be while they're online, and it's like, ugh, I should have just dated it, someone online. It's just it gets kind of creepy and kind of crazy. And you're right. This particular time we're in with the Me Too movement, nothing against it, women. I love it. I want you guys to empower yourselves. And with the all the different movements and the cancellation culture, and he said this 45 years ago, let's cancel him. But I mean, every part of time that we go through is a different part of who we are. It's a different part of the scenarios that judge and base that time frame. So, but with that being said, the roots of loneliness run deep. A 2019 study by Cigna found that 61% of Americans reported feeling lonely, up from 54% in 2018. Urbanization has created vast cities where people live closely yet rarely engage. Add in remote work and technology, which offer convenience but often strip away the day to day social interactions. And it's a recipe for isolation that emerges amongst our little social groups. The problem grows as face to face interactions decline, transforming our society into one of the digital connections that sometimes feel shallow and unsatisfying. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been in relationships where I felt completely lonely, but when I'm by myself, I feel like I have all kinds of companions, not because I'm schizophrenic or I got people in my head, but I really have learned to just love myself and grow from within. I mean, what do you feel about that? Do you think that that's something that you've been able to do and accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that comes and goes. Like you ultimately have to love yourself, but not just love yourself. You have to like kind of remind yourself because like we're our worst critics, so it's very
Right.
easy to tear ourselves apart without rebuilding us. So like
Yeah.
there's times in my life where I'm like, actually do love myself. I have a lot of love for myself, and
Yeah.
at those times I'm secure.
Mhm.
I'm like the best in my relationship, and then there's times where I feel alone and not as valued and not as
Yeah.
valuable, and
And it's
that
I mean
impacts your
you're
relationship
speaking to the
negatively.
choir. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's
So
a weird and it's something I believe that we've created. It's a new phenomenon, and I don't believe it ever was like this because if you really reckon back to it, our parents and their parents and their parents, when they got together, normally they stayed together for years and years and decades and decades. People didn't get divorced. They just dealt with it. You know what I mean? So loneliness wasn't really prevalent as it is right now. Everybody thinks the grass is greener on the other side. Nobody wants to invest in someone. They just believe like, "Oh, we had an argument on Saturday about who was cooking, and now I want a divorce because I can't live like this because I deserve better and blah, 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 blah," which probably most people do, and I'm not trying to overshadow that, but nobody wants to do the hard lifting in relationships, which would perpetuate all the loneliness that we see and the prevalence of its kind of pandemic reality. But several public figures and advocates are speaking out about the loneliness epidemic, including former U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy, who has extensively researched the impact of loneliness on health, highlighting how detrimental it is to our physicality and our mental well being. I mean, do you think loneliness has that much say in our everyday lives, in our physical and mental and spiritual enlightenment?
oh, absolutely. I think so
Okay.
because like the thing is like for your mental health, like we're social creatures, so you really need companionship, whether it's just a friendship, someone to talk to, someone to vent to, someone to relate to. It's just you need something everybody does, no matter how introverted you are. So by feeling so alone, it really does make you feel like, am I worthless? I have no value. Why am I even here? Why am I even doing this? And like that feeds into like self harm and like other obviously, worse things than that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I feel you there. And but that's the thing, when we're seeing all this and we're exploring it from our everyday lives, what do we do? What's a remedy for this?
I think honestly they could just be like slight practices, like introduce yourself to someone new every day, like one
Yeah,
person a day. Like try to
okay.
just, get outside your like what's causing you to not want to interact with people? Is it social
Yeah.
is it just you have social anxiety? Cuz
Mhm.
like there's groups and people with common interests everywhere. You just have to locate them and find them. And the only way to do that is, yeah, you might have to crash and burn. The world isn't always nice to you and, that's you have to realize that's okay.
Yeah, and it is. And sometimes, like, you're gonna strike out, right? I mean, we're right now in the World Series, Yankees versus Dodgers, go Dodgers. But sometimes you're gonna put your best weight into a ball, whatever that might be, however you wanna put that into perspective, and you're not going to hit that ball all the way. So you're gonna strike out, right? But you have to keep on setting yourself up for that mound and hit that ball. Eventually, you're gonna hit it, and you're gonna hit it with the right person, but you should always let people come to you, develop those relationships before chasing them down. You know what I'm saying? I think that's another reason why, because people are getting beaten down. There's a whole bunch of people out there that are walking wounded, like it's like a battle zone out there, and they just give up. They're like, it's probably just not for me. I'll just probably become a, as JD Vance would put, childless cat lady or cat man. You can be a cat man too, Gigi. Don't you think so? I mean,
Oh yeah, I love cats. I'm a kitty cat guy. You know that.
you are a kitty cat guy, which we gotta talk about that. That's kind of anywho.
What?
But with
What?
the
What?
yeah, well, the counterpunch on this, guys, is are we too quick to blame technology Because everybody will say, oh, it's social media. People don't want to get out anymore. They don't want to go to church. They don't want to go to the bars. They don't want to, whatever. They want to stay online and see if they can meet someone quicker online because you can either swipe right, swipe left, whatever the case may be. But some argue that tech brings people closer, especially for those who may struggle with in person socialization. But while social media and digital tools have their benefits, they may also breed comparison, making loneliness more acute. Do we need to rethink how we engage with technology? Do you think so, Gigi?
Yeah, I feel like people can be very irresponsible. You can be very heavily influenced by social media, comparing yourself to other people. A lot of times you want to get, that instant gratification because with Google being a thing, if you want to know something, boom, you know it. If you want to watch something, boom, you can watch it. Um,
Right.
there's no real suspense of wait anymore or like gratifying. People like lost that feeling of like success over time. It's
Yeah.
about the journey. So I feel like with technology, like the influence it has on your mental health with again social media. I know I keep touching on it. It's
Yeah.
really
Let's say
just
it.
don't compare yourself to other people. Like everyone wants to post a highlight reel of their life. So
Mhm.
like you don't see the downs, you don't see what everyone's going through, and the more people that you meet, the more you might realize like wow, like we're out here struggling. We're all we all have
Yeah.
things that we can relate with, and like through that is just like strength of like union and companionship. Like that's what draws us and brings us together.
Right.
Like
And it's
life.
and you make an excellent point. Continue on. I'm sorry. Mhm.
No, I was saying like life is about like it's not about, but like life is full of suffering, and that's something that draws us together.
Yeah. The suffering part. I mean, I'm like I always would tell people, I'm allergic to a few things. Suffering, hurting myself. I mean, the stuff that is not great about life, we already know. And a lot of people has said that as the loneliness epidemic continues to grow, what's next? Studies suggest that prolonged loneliness is as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It heightens risk for heart disease, stroke, depression, and anxiety. To break the cycle, fostering authentic, real life connections becomes crucial. Can we reclaim the sense of community that seems lost in the digital age? Like, I've lived in my neighborhood for about 4.5 years or so. And I will tell you, I only know maybe two of my neighbors. Like, and I don't even know their names. I just see them often. And I'm glad that I know them just in case something goes down, but I have cameras. But I want them on that side of the property line. I don't really want them coming over. I would get freaked out if they knocked on my door and gave me a pie or cookies or some shit like they used to do in the '50s and the '60s. I'd rather them just stay on their side of the and I don't know why that is. Is that built in? And remember, I'm not a Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Plus, or I'm a Gen X, but I'm not a Gen Plus Z guy. So I'm not continually always thinking about the social media and the aspects of online, communities. But it's ingrained in me that I love being an American. I love being around Americans, but I want the Americans to stay on their borderline, on their side of the property lines. I mean, why is that? Why do I feel that way? Do you think? Like, give me some aspects of some realities that you know of. I mean, do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has like a different social like battery limit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're just like, I'm so tired of dealing with people. Like when you tend to put the weight of the world on your shoulders and like
Yeah.
you're more empathetic, you kind of like get exhausted being around people to some degree.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like it all just comes down to mindset. Like I love being around people because like the thing that fuels me the most is making people laugh, and I
Yeah.
can't
Oh,
make
yeah.
people laugh if I'm not like really around them. So, or at least I don't get to experience the same joy. If I send someone a funny text or a meme, it's like one thing, and it's like I felt
Yeah.
good. They might have laughed, but being and laughing with
You
someone in
might have laughed.
person, it's just I don't know. It's just a different experience. So,
Oh, yeah.
um, it's just it depends on like just how you look at it. Like some people surround themselves with people that like exhaust them more
Yes.
than kind of bring the best out of them.
Right. And that's absolutely true. And the thing is, and I'll tell people all the time if they listen to me, you gotta I mean, what does RuPaul say? I mean, you wouldn't know, but I know. RuPaul says you gotta love yourself before you can love anybody else. And I am so involved in a committed relationship with myself that I don't even want to figure out anybody else or love anyone else because loving me is so much. It really is. And it's draining. And then people have told me, they're like, loving you is a lot, but I do love you, but it's, So, but with that being said, I think that that feeds itself into loneliness because for me, unless I know I found the right person, I don't want to be physically, mentally, or emotionally involved with them whatsoever at all because I feel like I take on a lot of people's negative energies and it drains me out so much that I don't even want to interact with people for days at a time. And I always tell my friends, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a me day for about 2 to 3 days, and I'm not going to need to talk to anybody else. So just give me my time so I can feel through it. You know what I'm saying? And I know, I mean, do you take me days for yourself?
Yeah, you have to. Like,
Yeah.
again, like, you have to prioritize yourself, obviously. The thing with that, like, the thing with it, like, people, like, draining you and stuff like that, it's I don't know. It's very easy to take on other people's, like, problems when a
Right.
lot of people find that they can, like, dump that on you. But you had to, like, be able to set the boundaries, and then, like, those me days are kinda like what those boundaries are. So, shut the world off, "Hey, this is for me, not for you," type of
Mhm.
thing, and people need to respect that, and the people that don't, they need to kinda, like, weed out of your life, like, you gotta weed them out because those are the ones
Yeah.
that are draining you.
That is true, and I know that you are a good, sense of people who and so am I. I think we're both empathic in the sense that we take on a lot of other people's negativity, and we try to materialize it and digest it and spew out the goodness of, like, Care Bears all over the place, like, "Care Bear stare, Care Bear stare, Care." But after a while, taking in all that negativity, it just depletes your soul, man, and sometimes it can deplete your emotional standards especially when people cross boundaries. And I know you know about people crossing boundaries and how that turns out. But when people cross those boundaries, they don't realize that you are an emotional being and you are taking in a lot of their negative stuff because everybody always wants to talk to me about their problems and issues, which I'm completely fine with. I love that because I do like to help people. But it does take a load for me to do that because now I've become that person like a sponge that has sucked up all the stuff that are going on with their lives, you know what I mean? And it takes me a while to displace all that negativity out into the world and have it, be sucked up by something else. So, I mean, and I would also say that I believe that loneliness isn't just a symptom of society, but it's also a condition of society because there's a lot of people in society that just suck and you're better off to yourself. And I don't want to be, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here but sometimes being by yourself and just loving yourself is worth more than all the gold in the world. Does that make sense? What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. You have to love your own company. Like, that's the biggest thing. You have to have peace of mind with yourself. If you can't stand to be by yourself, then there's some inner peace that you need to correct.
Yeah.
Like, find out what is going on because ultimately it's you against the world.
Oh,
You're the
yeah.
only one that, like, really truly loves you for you, except for
My
maybe your
mother.
mother. Yeah, exactly.
True.
Um,
Your
you know,
dad.
uh, yeah,
My mom always used to tell me, "Oh, let's say," my mom used to say, "Mother's baby, daddy's maybe." Because when it's your mom, you know you came out of her. I mean,
oh yeah, you're right. You're
Unless
right.
yeah, unless it's weird, like, I don't know, but no one's gonna love you like your mother loves you. No one's going to love you unconditionally. No one, because I've seen some ugly ass babies. I'm gonna, just take a segment, and I've always they'll come to me with these pictures of these ugly, ugly babies, and you have to fake it till you make it to be like, oh, yeah, look at those eyes. Look at that jaw line and that, lisping lip that's, got the drool. That's a beautiful baby. But in your heart, you're like, God damn, that baby's gonna have some crises. But in your mind that no one's gonna love that baby more than the mother. And that baby's probably gonna be lonely for a while. Like,
And there's a reason why people say that baby has a face that a mama can't even love because, like,
or that only a mother can love. My
yeah,
goodness, sir. but you got to be nice. You got to just play the ropes as you get them. But loneliness may be widespread, but solutions are within reach. Through awareness and intentional actions, we can work to create genuine human connections that combat this silent epidemic. Now, I don't know how silent this epidemic is because out of all the friends that I have, and I have a lot of friends, I think I can only count on one hand those that are starting a relationship or have been in a relationship. And the ones that have been in a relationship, I think there's only one that's been in a relationship for longer than 5 years. All the rest of them are just now getting into one or kind of contemplating. So, with that being said, how many friends do you have that are close to you, Gigi, that are in a relationship? Is it a lot?
Yeah, I would say like some of my closest friends are, yeah, they're in a relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just at a wedding that my two friends, they've been together, shoot, over, I feel like 10 years. I feel like maybe more. I'm not, yeah, it's been a long time for them, you know?
Okay. Well, congratulations
Um,
to them, the new bride and groom. But I mean, and I don't know if it's a regional thing or if it's lifestyle choice. Because I mean, I am homosexual. You are heterosexual. And I know from the homosexual standpoint, everybody's just in and out of beds all day long. In South Carolina, they this is so fucking weird. But in South Carolina, there's 10,000 new HIV diagnoses in South Carolina just last month. So, or within the time span of that hurricane or whatever was going on, like, people were just doing the monkey business and not weren't being protected. And I think that when you go to sex like that, it's a condition of loneliness. Sometimes you just want to be held and touched. But guys, you have to be careful. Like you can't just invite anybody into your bed. I mean, and I don't mean to laugh about it, but I mean, can you just invite anybody in your bed? I mean, from the heterosexual standpoint, there are women that'll do some strange things to guys, just like other guys will do to guys or girls will do to girls. Am I right?
right. Yeah, you're right. I tend to like, I'm not really into the whole like hookup scene type of thing. It's just not
Yeah.
really not for me. Never really has
Mm,
been.
neither.
I gave it a whirl in my early 20s.
Yeah.
But I'm long past grown over that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously you want to make sure that you're paying attention to if you want to live a promiscuous lifestyle, good for you. But like, make sure that you're like getting tested, and your partner's getting tested, because like, God,
Yeah.
damn, like we're all out of here struggling, and you're all making it work.
Yeah. And I remember this
Clean it
weird
up,
thing back in the
clean it up.
clean
God,
it up, get that stuff out. No, I remember this weird thing back in the day when AIDS first came out, because I'm an '80s baby for the most part. When AIDS first came out, there was this like I don't know if it was an urban legend, but this guy supposedly, he went to a bar, found this girl, took her back home to a condo of his or whatever, and they did the do. And then in the morning, she wrote on his bathroom window, "Welcome to the world of AIDS." Like, she was on a mission to give this guy a disease that back then you couldn't do anything about. There was no pills, so that was a death sentence. And that's one of my main. And I don't know what it is. I wasn't like this, like you said, in my 30s. Between 30 and 35, I was a hoe, a genuine hoe. But after I got older, I was like, wow, I did all those things and I never, got touched with anything gross. And not that AIDS is gross. I'm not going to say that, but in diseases or virals or whatever. And, thank the creator above because I didn't have any clicking guardrails. I was doing the do all the time. And that's what I would tell you that when you go out and you mingle with people that you don't really know, you bring them back in. Sometimes it's just better just to be lonely and just take care of business on your own. You know what I'm saying? So, but with all that being said, guys, and I went on a rant, and sometimes I'll do
remember,
it.
you gotta love
Sometimes I
yourself.
won't. Hey, love yourself, you fucking whatever. No, but Gigi's right. You can't love anybody unless you have love for yourself. And then I will tell you, take a month if you've never done it before and you always feel the need to be with other people. Take a month to 6 months to a year and just be alone. Not necessarily in solitude, still reach your friends, your family, whatever, but don't do any sexual experiences. Don't go looking for nobody. Just love you. Oh my
Celibacy.
gosh. Gigi, I've done that for like the last year. I've been celibate. I haven't really I've messed up a couple times. celibate in my eyes is, occasionally, not every day kind of situation. So with that being said, but it's an eye opener, man. When you can just sit there and love yourself and not have anybody come into your environment, you learn so much more about yourself. I mean, it's just so awesome. It really is. And I know you're a big proponent on stuff like that too. Not like I was or what I did, but somewhere along those lines. But when you do it and you're just with yourself, how do you feel about it?
Well, it helps you like realign who you are, find out like what
Yeah.
you're actually interested in, what you value. So it
Yeah.
sets yourself up for like a more. i- So like I'm trying to think of the best way to put this.
Mhm.
Every time I go into a relationship and it ends, I come out of it a better person. I've learned from my
Yeah.
mistakes because like no matter what, mistakes were made. If a relationship fails, mistakes were made along the line somewhere.
Something had
Um,
to happen. Yeah.
yeah, on both parties.
Hmm.
And like you have to take that, learn from it, find out like what you're actually valuing, and go for that. Like, what makes you happy? Like it can't be this, you know, shallow, and not at least not for me. The shallow feeling of just like, oh yeah, I just like hooking up when I'm bored. Like I don't know. Like I feel like I want something deeper, and that's what I'm after. And to find something deeper, I have to know exactly what I want in a person.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how can I communicate that with a partner?
That's true. You really have to put yourself in it and experience those emotions so that you know how to give those back to other people. And that's a part about being in a society where there's a give and take. I mean, you've seen the rise of incels and guys, for anyone out there who's listening and you don't know what incels are. Incels are these guys, I would usually call them basement dwellers, but they're these guys who don't interact with society really. They stay out in their mom's basement or far away from everybody. And then they get into this point where they don't believe anyone loves them. They can't find a woman. And then they start to think derangedly that women are against them and don't want to be with them and that they should kill women and murder women and all this crazy stuff. And it's just weirdness. And it was really prevalent back about 5 to 10 years ago. There was incels coming out of the woodwork and they had meetings and groups. And I'm sure they still do, but that's depravity. And when you continue on with the loneliness, when you don't love yourself first and you're still lonely, that's a recipe for disaster. I mean, it really is. And I think Gigi, you would agree with me on that. I mean, do you remember the incel crisis we had, where all these kids and teenagers and old 40-year-old men were on these weird chat lines talking about just taking women down, and they were acting on it. They were going out and just shooting women point blank in the open at the colleges and stuff like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think that's been a problem throughout like most of like humanity. Like when people
Mhm,
feel insignificant, they just lash out in the most, especially like I don't want to like stereotype, but like especially men
mhm.
in this like
Oh,
these
yeah.
aggressive forms to gain attention and relevancy. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I it's it's crazy because like my heart goes out to a lot of those people because like
Yeah.
they have mental disorders or they weren't raised properly and they just have an issue with like relating to people. Like there's a million things that can go into that,
Yeah,
and
there is.
like they're lost, and I understand, but they don't have the resources to correctly channel, and after a certain point, you know I feel like people do become lost. Like I hate to say that, like don't give up on anybody. I feel like at a certain point, the person themselves are on a track, and there's not much
Mhm.
you can do for them. It's all on them, and they have to kind of like find that for themselves.
And
So
yeah,
no,
and it
I'm good.
no, and you were good, and you're correct about that. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, it's probably I mean, I'm sure it's still going on now, and it probably has gone on forever, but I just remember it being such a big thing back in, like, 2010, 2005 kinda vibe. It wasn't really a vibe. I mean, they were just on the I mean, every time I saw 60 Minutes or a news profile channel, they were talking about the incels are rising and they're gathering, and then I would see, like, some kind of violent crime that they committed against a women, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible." But you're right, it's probably been around for a very, very long time. So all that to be said, guys, if you're feeling lonely, reach out to people that you trust, that you care for, and just let them know, "Hey, you wanna go catch a movie? You wanna go out to a dinner? If you don't have the funds, go to a park, a museum." There's a lot of free things out there that you can take someone to, just to build those relationships. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a sexualized relationship. It can just be a friendly thing. Watching movies together, you have your favorite sitcoms, cartoons, however you get it through it. You don't have to feel alone or be alone. And I know a lot of people out there are shy and they don't want to do that, but sometimes you got to force yourself into things that you are uncomfortable with just previously. So, in conclusion, dear listeners, maybe it's time to step away from the screen, look up, and start a conversation. When the digital fades, who's still there? Finding our way back to true connections could be the answer. You've been listening to Let Me Take You Higher, the podcast. My name is Mr. Villain. For Gigi Luigi, just get out there and connect, guys, and have a great night. Bye. And that's a wrap on this episode of Let Me Take You Higher, the podcast. Big thanks to our special guests and a huge shout out to our incredible sponsors. You guys are literally the wind beneath our podcast wings. Remember, this show was dreamed up and brought to life by yours truly, Mr. Villain, and it's all made possible by BC Entertainment LLC, a proud subsidiary of Big Cheddar Music LLC. All rights are reserved by BC Entertainment, so don't even think about touching that dial without permission. Until next time, keep your minds elevated and your vibes higher. This is Mr. Villain signing off. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and stay forever gifted and lifted.
When life storms rage and skies grow dim, we gather the shards, piece by piece within. Through tears and trials, we find our might. Let me take you higher toward the light. Let me take you higher beyond the pain. Where broken dreams mend and hope remains. We'll rise from ashes like a phoenix bold. In the symphony of resilience, our stories unfold. When life storms rage and skies grow dim, we gather the shards, piece by piece within. Through tears and trials, we find our might. Let me take you higher toward the light. Let me take you higher beyond the pain. Where broken dreams mend and hope remains. We'll rise from ashes like a phoenix bold. In the symphony of resilience, our stories unfold.